So once again, good afternoon. So this time we are now week 5, quarter 2 of our lesson in science. And just like what I told you before or last time, you're going to answer 10 questions, okay, about our topic. We have discussed week 3 and 4, okay, about menstruation and animal reproduction. So I'm going to send the link now through your group chat and then open it. Give me feedback if you can open or not. And then answer the 10 questions for at least um, 5 minutes. Okay, sent already. You may now start.
Nabuksan
Feedback,
ko na
please,
po.
if you can open.
Nabuksan ko na po.
Nabuksan ko po.
Nabuksan ko po.
Okay.
Nabuksan ko po.
Okay. Right. Start now.
Nabuksan ko po.
finish. As I can see, there are like 15 responses. While waiting for the others, will you please get your show me board? We're going to use that. Okay, so I think we can proceed now. But before we proceed, as I have a question. Are you satisfied with the result of your exam? Yes or no? Yes, satisfied. But you know what? There are there are there are some who got 2, 3 points, 4 points. So are you satisfied with that? Are you satisfied with 2 points, 4 points? 5 or 6? So far, highest is 9. Now let me ask, Hannah, will you please tell me why do you think you got 9 points in this examination?
Because I review our lesson.
Yes, you have reviewed, definitely, because you have reviewed. That's right, we really need to review. Because if we will just listen to the topic or to the lesson once, do you think maaalala natin, matatandaan? No. Teleserye pa, movies, madali niyong maikwento yon. Kung anong naganap, nangyari, the very beginning hanggang matapos ng kwento. You can actually retell with action, you know? Or, but this one, you cannot do that by just, one time, listening for the first time and then that's it. Okay na. You really need to review because if you'll not review, definitely you'll not get what you want. You'll not get high score for this kind of exam. Percy, why do you think you got 8 points?
Because I read my notes.
Okay, reading the notes is also important. Why? Whatever I put in the exam or in the examination, those are the things that I ask you to write. Okay? For example, let me show it. Okay. If you can see this one, the first question. In this stage, hormones are produced to stimulate the growth of ovarian follicles and thickening of endometrium. Okay? So I already told you that the clue there is the thickening of the endometrium. And then hormones are being produced to stimulate the growth of the ovarian follicles. So from the word itself, that is what? A follicular stage. Follicles or ovarian follicles. And thickening of endometrium, preparing for the what? Release of an egg. So definitely, this is the stage wherein the ovary is being prepared for the release of an egg. Now, number two, I really can't believe na mali kayo dito kasi I even asked you to write the difference between the oviparous and the viviparous animal. Okay? Nagbigay pa nga kayo ng example. So what is an oviparous animal? Anyone? Dana?
Animals that lay eggs.
Nagsalita ka na ba, Dana?
Opo.
Ayun, that's it. Correct. Ayun, meron na namang delay sa receive ko ng ano. Okay, animals that, lay eggs. So definitely, meron kasi nagsagot ng dog. Naglilay ba ng egg yung dog? O alin ba yung naglilay ng ano dyan? I mean, may nagsagot kasi ng bird rather. Eh di ba yung bird is laying an egg? Okay. Snake,
Sir, is
also
not
laying an
po.
egg. Lizard, yes, also laying an egg. So, alin lang dyan yung not an oviparous animal? Definitely dog. Kasi, pag pinanganak niya yung kanyang baby, that is, similar to appearance of the mother. Kapareho ng itsura ng mother. Okay? Well, the three of that, bird, snake, lizard, those are what? An oviparous animal. They are laying eggs. So the answer there should be dog. Kasi not. Okay, number 3. So your clue, kaya nga is not. Okay. Can you still hear me, class? Okay.
Yes po.
So merong delay class yung receive ko ng ano nyo, yung sagot. But anyway, so let's continue. So number 3, this stage, the thick lining of the uterus will slow off and will be eliminated from the body as menstrual blood. So the answer here should be menstruation because that is the release of the blood, the bleeding, or what we call the period. And that is what? During day 1. Right. So that's it. Can you see me now? Yes? All right. So let's continue. I said in number 3, that is what? Menstruation. That is letter D, or the period. 4. This one for frogs. Frogs is what? Sexual reproduction because need two parents, both male and female, and then external fertilization. So pinakita kong video sa inyo, um, when they are mating, naglalabas sila ng egg cell and the sperm cell, and then it definitely will be fertilized outside the body. That is why we call it external fertilization. Number 5, in the process, another hormone causes the follicle to rupture and release an egg. So this one is the ovulation. Kasi nga, nagre-release ng egg. From the word ova, paulit-ulit naman ako dito sa part na to. From the word ovulation, ova. So it means releasing an egg from the ovary. You get it? Ovulation. So, at what day, anyone? Please answer. On what day do this ovulation occur? Yes, Aliyah? On what day? Yes, Kia?
Day 14.
Day 14. That is correct. So that is an ovulation stage. Next, let's proceed number 6. If the first day of menstruation is April 2, when will be the next first menstrual flow or period? So definitely you'll count 28 days. Okay? So kung nag-start ka ng April 2, definitely the next is April 30. Kasi first day mo yung April 2. And then we'll count hanggang April 29. And the next stage or the next cycle will start April 30. Next, um, number 7. Okay, number 7. Okay, before I continue, Dana, ayan, will you please do thumbs? I will do this way para maano ko lang kung nakikita ko. Okay, kung timing. Kasi plus may delay sa aking receive ng inyong responses. Okay, anyway. Let's proceed. A girl who is experiencing menstruation is capable of pregnancy. Meron dito sumagot. Letter C, no, she is not ready. Hindi yun yung sagot. Ang isasagot ninyo is scientific. Based sa science, based sa discussion natin. You get my point? So, the answer is yes. Because the egg from the ovary matures. At kapag nag-mature na yung ovary, lalabas na siya ng ovary mo, and then it will go through the fallopian tube, and then pag may sperm, definitely it will be fertilized. So, ibig sabihin, capable na siya of pregnancy. At the time na nagkakaroon na ng menstruation yung girl. You get my point? So, that should be the answer, letter B. Next, the union of egg cell and sperm cell is called, the answer there is, definitely the answer there is fertilization. Merong sumagot ng occupulation. Ano yun? Did we discuss occupulation? And then somebody answered reproduction. Somebody answered ovulation. Ano yun? You are just, guessing. Is this a guessing game or a guessing exam? Union of egg cell and sperm cell. I'm always repeating that one. The answer is fertilization. Next, describe sexual reproduction. So definitely the answer there needs two parents, male and female. And then number 10, which of the following is an asexual reproduction process? Definitely it's budding, if you still remember. That's why I asked you to read your book. Kaya lang, kung mali yung sagot, ibig sabihin, hindi nagrema yung about sa budding, hindi rin nagbasa. Okay? So, that's the main, that's the problem. Kapag hindi nagbabasa, definitely hindi nakukuha. Anyway, so let's continue with the next one. So I'll give another exam parallel to this. Let me see. Pero this is already recorded. So, pag hindi pa rin talaga, ibig sabihin wala kayong, what do you call this? You are not aiming for something. Hindi nyo ayaw yung tulungan yung sarili nyo kasi nakailan chance na tayo ng exam. Still, ganun pa rin yung points na nakukuha natin. So, for series of exam, ganun pa rin ang ganun yung result, it means you're not preparing for that. You did not review. Okay, show me board. Now, I asked you to write. I'll give a clue like letters from the alphabet, and then you're going to write at least one name of a flower that starts with that letter. Okay? So are you ready? Are you ready?
Sir, sa
Yes?
chat box
Okay.
po ako
So you're going to write your answer. You're going to write your answers on your show me board. So let me see kung sino yung mas maraming alam sa name ng flowers. Let's start with that letter that I'm going to ask you to write. For example, okay, let's start. Give me a flower that starts with letter S. O, wag mo nang ipapakita ha. I will say 3, 2, 1 first before you show it. 3, wait, sige, sulat muna. A flower that starts, yeah, please show it. In 3, 2, 1, go. At least one. At least one, okay. Sunflower, sunflower, sampaguita, santan. Okay, so correct. What is SAMP, Anika? What is SAMP? SAMP. So sampaguita is correct. Okay, very good. So you give 1 point for this drill if you got it correct. So I'll just count 1 to 5 and then you're going to show your answer. Next, you're going to write a flower starts with letter A. Letter A. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Another 5, another 3, 2, 1, go! Huwag mag-google ha. Kung ano lang yung unang pumasok sa isip na name of flower. Okay. Acacia actually has a flower also, but it's not we are considering that as a flowering plant. Yeah, but sige, since it has flower naman, I consider. Anyway, we are going to talk about naman flowers. It's still, ano pa rin naman siya. Actorium or antorium? Aloe vera. Angiosperm. Angiosperm is actually the group of plants na merong seeds. Okay? Or flowering plants. Angiosperm. Alright. So, maglagay ng points. I'll consider acacia kasi may flower din naman siya. Like 3. Anyway, we talk about plants or tree rather, that has flower. Okay? Next. Okay, give me a flower starts with letter. Okay, flower starts with letter. Okay, letter C. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. May I see your answers? Camia, okay, correct. Camia, yes, Camia is correct. Majority answered Camia. Letter C. Hana na nagkamali kaya ng dinig sa sabi ko. It's C, not T. C. Okay, not T. Okay, Camia is correct. Last two. Please give point for that. Last two, how about flower that starts with letter, okay, letter R. R. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Rose. Okay, majority answered rose. Rose, all right. Okay, that's correct. Rose is correct. Yes, very good. Next, let's proceed. How about flower that starts with letter D? D. Dog, as in dog. Letter D. D, yes. Letter D. Wow, rain lily. Okay. Daisy, Daisy. Ayan ba? Pareho ng sagot. Dandelions, okay. What else? Daffodil, okay, Daisy. All right. So, almost majority of the class got it. Okay, give a point for that. That is another point. Now, so since you already have an idea of what we're going to discuss, yes, you're right. We're going to discuss here reproductive parts of plants. And definitely flower is an important part of, when we talk about reproductive parts of flower or reproductive structure of plants, flower is a very important one, part of it. Okay? Now, do you think plants also reproduce? Yes or no? Anyone? Abang, do you think plants also reproduce? Yes, Abang.
Yes.
All right, correct. So it also reproduce. Like, do you think it's what kind of reproduction? Do you think what kind of reproduction? Anyone? Yes, Mia?
Asexual reproduction.
Yes. So it has also asexual reproduction. But do you know that it has also sexual reproduction? Okay? So how is it possible na meron din sexual reproduction yung flower and then we have asexual reproduction? So definitely, plants, on the process of asexual reproduction need two reproductive structure, male and female. So we'll know here in our discussion class, please identify what are the male reproductive structure of flower and what are the female reproductive structures of flower. So male and female. So take note of the parts also and the functions. Okay? So I will ask you later what are the parts and functions. So please watch this to know more about the reproductive parts and functions.
Till now, we have discussed and learnt the different types of asexual reproduction in plants. But is there any other method of reproduction adopted by plants? Yes, there is. We know that some plants are capable of sexual reproduction as well. Do plants possess any special features for this? Yes, they do. Plants possess flowers. Flowers are the reproductive structure of the plant. In a flower, the male sex organ is called the stamen and the female sex organ is called the pistil. But how does this process of sexual reproduction occur? Let's try and understand it. But before that, let's have a look at the typical structure of a flower. It appears somewhat like this. A flower has mainly two components. Now, what do we mean by this? Every flower is mainly composed of two parts. They are the essential and the non-essential parts. Do we know what these are? The parts of a flower, such as the stamen and the pistil, which are the reproductive parts, are the essential parts. Their function says it all. These are essential because they are directly involved in the process of reproduction. Do we mean that if these structures are not present, then a plant will not be able to reproduce? Yes, that's absolutely correct. So how will the plant be able to reproduce if the gamete-producing structures are not present? And what are the other parts then? Floral parts such as the petals and sepals are the next in our list, and they are the non-essential parts of a flower. These floral parts do not take part in the process of reproduction directly and are therefore called the non-essential parts. Now let's discuss each part in detail. To begin with, we have the stamen, which is the male part. What does the stamen look like? If we zoom in the structure, it looks like this. Stamen has two distinct parts, the anther and the filament. Do you think that these structures have specific functions to perform? Yes, as a matter of fact, they do. The part called the anther bears minute round bodies called pollen grains which play an active role in reproduction. There is a specific process by which pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the female part of the same or different flower. Now, what is that part called? For that, we need to focus onto our next floral part, the pistil, which is the female part. The pistil has three distinct subparts. And what are these subparts? They are the stigma, style, and the ovary. Do these structures have specific functions? Yes, they do. The part called stigma is the landing place for the pollen. And what exactly do we mean by this? Pollen from the male part, the anther, land on the stigma and germinate further. This process is what we call pollination in plants. Next comes the style, which is a slender stalk that holds up the stigma in position and connects it with the ovary. What about the ovary then? It is the swollen basal part of the pistil which contains the ovules. But what are ovules and what is their function? Ovules are the female gametes that get fertilized and form the embryo. Is this process really so simple? Well, it's not as simple as it seems. The process is quite complicated. This was just an overview. Let us get into more details of the process of fertilization in the next video.
Nag-leave.
Oo.
Okay. Hello? Can you see me? Yeah. Class, actually, napapanood nyo siya kasi nasa desktop yan. But then, ako yung, isa kong ginagamit kasi na for monitor, yun yung naghahang. Kaya hindi ko nakikita kung tapos na kayo or nag-respond na ba kayo or what. That's why nagtatanong ako dun sa chat if napanood yun ng maayos. You get it? May delay kasi sa akin. Tapos na siya ng mga 1 minute ago, hindi pa tapos sa akin. Yung sagot ninyo, delay ko rin nare-receive. Yung interval niya is 5 seconds. You answer there sa monitor, tapos marireceive ko siya after 5 seconds. Diba? Sobrang delay. Okay, but anyway, so we'll continue. What are the parts? There are 2 types. What are the parts mentioned? Huwag niyo akong ipipin ha. What are the parts? Yes, Abang?
The pistil and the stamen.
Okay. That is actually, when we talk about the pistil and the stamen, that is the male and female reproductive structure. Do you get it? Pistil is for male or female? Mia?
Female.
Okay. Another term for pistil is, going to type it there, carpel. That's why when you heard the word carpel, it means pistil. Same. Okay? Hindi siya magkaibang term. That's similar. Now, we have, what is again, Eman, the name for, or the reproductive structure for male? If we have pistil or carpel for female, what is the name or the term we use for male?
Stamen.
Stamen, okay? So stamen is for Male. You get it? So there are two. Now, is stamen and pistil present in one flower? Yes or no? Is pistil and stamen are like present in one flower? Yes or no? Yes, Bella? Yes. Okay. Who says no? Raise your hand. Okay. The answer here is both correct for yes and no. Why? There are flowers that are complete. It means it has male and female reproductive structure. But there are flowers that, what? Composed only of one. Sometimes only male, and there are times there are some flower only female. You get my point? So the answer is it's either yes or no. But in this discussion, if you have heard a while ago, there are essential parts and non-essential parts. So let's proceed first to the essential parts of the flowering plants. Okay. So the essential part is definitely is the stamen for male. Okay? So if you read this one, male part of the flower made up of anther and filament. So take note of these two parts, that is what? Together with, compose the stamen. We have the filament and the anther. So these are essential. Filament is a long, thin structure that supports an anther. So you see that one? Oh, yung tube na yun na nag-hold sa anther. Anther is a flower structure in which pollen grains are produced. So it means there is a part of a male reproductive structure where the pollen is located or pollens are located. Okay? And what do we call that? The anther. So if I ask you, what is the flower structure that holds the pollen? Or where the reproduction of pollens occur? So you will answer anther. And then when I ask, what is the long thin structure that supports an anther? You're going to answer filament. And take note that this filament and anther are parts of stamen, which is the male reproductive structure. So, if you see that one, ito yan. Ito yun, no? Yung mga maliliit na to, inaano ko ng arrow, ito. So, this one is the anther, and then this one, a long thin structure is the filament. Did you get it? And that is for male essential parts. Take note, essential parts. Take note of the term that we use. Now, next, let's proceed to this one. Pistil. Okay, or another term is carpel. This is the center of most flowers. So if you see something like in the middle of a flower, that is the pistil or the carpel. And what are the parts? The parts are the stigma, the style, and the ovary. Again, the stigma, the style, and the ovary. The stigma is on the tip. That is the tip of the what? Of the pistil. And this is the one receiving the pollen. Okay? The one receiving what? The pollen grains. And then definitely we have a style that is a long slender part where the pollen grains travel from the stigma going to the ovary. Okay? So, yung style, kung sa tao class, in human, this is like the tube, the fallopian tube, where the sperm travel. So, same thing with flower. We have a style where the pollen grains travel from the stigma going to the ovary. Why? Because sa ovary magaganap class yung pagpo-produce niya na yung pag-fertilize ng pollen and together with the egg. May egg din kasi yung flower, right? Doon siya magpo-fertilize. And then yung pinakababa niya class, the lower part, we call that the ovary. The rounded base that has ovules or the eggs, and this is called the ovary. Okay? So these are the parts of the flower. Now, let's have a review first before I continue. What are the parts of a stamen? Santara?
Anther and filament.
Correct. So anther and the filament. How about carpel or pistil? What are the parts? Yes, Carl? Yes, Carl? Please answer.
Nag-left po si Carl.
Nawala na naman si Carl. Okay, how about anyone? Kia, will you please mention the three parts that I have?
Style, stigma, and ovary.
Very good. So those are the parts of the female reproductive structure or the pistil or the carpel. Now let's before we continue to the other parts of the discussion. Okay, look at this first class. I'm going to show the non-essential parts. But even this is non-essential, we usually like see this in most of the flowers. Okay, let's take note of this, non-essential parts. And what are those non-essential parts? Yes, we have the receptacle that holds the flower on the stem. So later I'm going to point it. And then the sepals. These are the tiny leaves that form the calyx. And then the petals. Actually, the petals are the ones, that responsible for attracting insects for pollination. Because pollination is important in reproduction of, flowers or plants. Together with the petals, form the corolla. Ayan. So, let me show it to you, which are the receptacles. Doon na lang class ulit. Doon sa shinare ko a while ago. Ayan. So, hindi lang siya naka-note class kung alin dyan, but this one. Yung petals, definitely yung colorful part. The red one, those are the petals. Okay, attracting the insects. And then the green one is one. Yun, inuturo ko ng arrow. These are the sepals. And then receptacle is this one, yung nasa ilalim. Ito. The receptacle. Okay? So those are the parts. Okay, what part? The non-essential parts of a flower. Again, the non-essential parts of a flower. For a while class nag-aano lang yung slide, hindi siya mag-open. Alright, so ayaw niya. Okay. Okay, to have like another view of what I'm telling you a while ago about the non-essential parts, so I'm going to show this one more. Okay, so look at that. The sepal, the receptacle, and then the petal. So take note of that because later, one of your tasks is to draw and label. Okay. Other term. So maybe you'll encounter other term for that. So what is the other term class for sepal? Other term, anyone? Have you read that one? Have you read? What is another term for sepal?
Calyx.
Yes, Jaisley. Yeah, that's correct. Calyx. Ayan. And other term for petal? Ara?
Corpola. Corolla.
Yes, corolla. There you have it. So that's the other term. Okay, because later, one of your tasks is to draw, and then you're going to label the non-essential parts, and then you're going to label the stamen. So for example, you are going to draw it and then put a line, and then you will name it filament, anther, and then stamen, the two. And then you're going to draw style, stigma, and ovary, and then you're going to label it pistil or carpel. And then you're going to draw the non-essential parts, the receptacle, the calyx, and the corolla. Did you get it? Now, why we need to discuss first the reproductive structure. Same with the human. At first, we have discussed first the male reproductive parts and functions together with the female reproductive parts and functions. Because we cannot understand about reproduction if we don't know about the parts of the flowers. Because definitely, these parts of the flowers are the one responsible for reproduction. And we will discuss it now. How they reproduce, and pollination is a very essential process in reproduction. Get it? That's why, please watch this video, and later I'm going to ask few questions about pollination.
Hi kids! Today we will learn about pollination and fertilization in plants. So let's start. We learned that all living beings reproduce. That is, all living things give birth to the same kind. And similarly, plants too reproduce their own kind. And most of the plants reproduce through seeds. That is, they produce seeds, which when it germinates and produces a new plant. Let's see how these seeds are produced. We learned the structure of a flower in our last assignment. This is pedicel, which is a green color stalk. Then this broader part is a receptacle, and all other parts are arranged in 4 whorls. Tutway has thousands of animated videos on math, English, and science to clear the core basics of these subjects. The first whorl is of green sepals. Second is colorful petals. Third is stamens, which is the male reproductive part. Fourth is carpel or pistil, which is the female reproductive part. Stamen consists of a long stalk called filament and a swollen head called anther. It consists of numerous very small pollens, which are male reproductive cells. Pistil consists of a sticky structure called stigma, attached to a long tube-like structure called style, and style ends in a swollen part called ovary. And this ovary contains the female reproductive cells, ovules. When pollens from the anther of stamen joins with the ovules present in the ovary, we call it fertilization. Let's revise. When pollens from the anther of stamen joins with the ovules present in the ovary, it is called fertilization. And fertilization forms the seeds inside the ovary. And after fertilization, this ovary changes into a fruit. That's why seeds are there inside the fruit. Now let's see what is pollination. Pollination is a process by which pollen is transferred from the anther, that is, the male part, to the stigma, which is the female part of the plant, thereby enabling the fertilization and reproduction in turn. Now let's see how pollination occurs or how pollens reach stigma. There are various ways. How do pollens reach the stigma? Flowers have bright petals and strong fragrance that attract insects and other animals. Also, flowers have thin, nutritious honey-like liquids called nectar inside of them that acts as food for many insects. Butterflies, bees, and many other insects feed on the nectar. So they visit the flower to suck nectar. While sucking nectar from the flowers, they are in no way harmed by the insects. Insects feed on the nectar present in the flowers. The core basics of this attached to the body of the insect. Anther gets attached to the body of the insects. And when these insects visit some other flower for nectar, pollens get to the sticky top of the pistils, and by the way of long tubes called style. Pollens reach the ovary where ovules are present, and fertilization occurs, leading to the formation of seeds. So this process of pollens reaching the sticky tops of pistils is called pollination. And pollens may reach to the stigma of the same flower or stigma of different flowers. When pollens reach the stigma of the same flower, it is called self-pollination. And when pollens reach the stigma of different flowers of the same kind, it's called cross-pollination. So kids, we now know what is fertilization and what is pollination. Now we will learn about different agents of pollination. Insects like bees, butterflies, beetles, etc. are the main agents of pollination. Birds and mammals too pollinate some flowers. Wind also acts as an agent of pollination. Water too acts as an agent of pollination. So kids, today we learned about fertilization and pollination. Now go ahead and take a quiz to learn more. Bye-bye.
Take a quiz na daw. But anyway, so that is why, as I said a while ago, we need to discuss first the structure because these structures are important in discussing the pollination and fertilization. So how the fertilization occurs? Anyone? How? So definitely, I will explain class first. Definitely, there is a male structure. Please listen. There's a male structure. Okay? Where we can find the pollen grains. What part of the stamen? Anyone? Where we can find the pollen grains? Yes, Eman. Anther. So definitely, the pollen grains from the anther will be what? Attached or transferred to the stigma. Stigma is a sticky structure. So definitely, since it is sticky, pollen grains will what? Be attached to that. Take note, the pollen grains will be attached to that. But definitely, hindi siya mag-a-attach class ng by itself. Anyway, pwede rin naman ang agent ng pag-transfer ng pollen grains from anther to the stigma is because of the wind. Pwede yun. Do you think it's possible? Yes. Humangin ng malakas. Hangin. And then nayugyog, na-shake yung pollen grains na nandun sa may, what they call this? Anther. And then, dahil sticky yung stigma, na-attach ngayon yung pollen grains na may stigma. And definitely, the fertilization will occur after that. Bababa yung pollen grains from the stigma, going to the style, and then down to the ovary. And then there's an egg there. We call that the ovules. And definitely, the pollen grains will fertilize the ovule. And then it will turn into what? It will turn into seed. Okay? And then, so that the seed will be protected, hindi siya makain ng insect or ng kung anumang bagay para makapag-reproduce siya, ipoprotect siya ngayon ng ovary. And then the protective structure of plants or flowers, we call it the fruit. So actually, class, in real sense, yung fruit talaga, that's the protective structure of the seed. Pero sa ating human, ano yung pinakamahalaga? Yung fruit o yung seed? Which one is the most important for you? Yes, which one is more important? Amika, which one is more important for you? Is it the seed or the fruit?
Fruit.
The fruit. But in plants, they are really protecting the seed. That is why we have the fruit. That's a protective structure of the seed. Para yung seed, tutubo siya ulit and then it will reproduce. Do you get my point? Okay? Kaya kahit hindi kayo magtanim, nakikita nyo sa paligid, even tumingin kayo sa mga forest, wala namang nagtanim nun, pero bakit sila nagdumadami? It's because of the fertilization and the pollination. Because of reproduction. You get my point? Now, aside from the wind, there are another agents of pollination. Okay? What are those? What are those, Santara? Yes, Santara, what are those? Diana, yes. Diana, what are those? Agents of
Birds and
pollination.
mammals.
Yes. So it was mentioned, birds can be an agent. Mammals also, definitely, when they are like eating grass, for example, and then naggalaw nila yung flower, definitely na-shaken, and then the pollen will be transferred from the anther to the stigma, and that is another way. Okay? What else? Kia?
Water.
Yes, water can be an agent also. Rainfall, definitely, so it can be. Very good. Yes, that's correct. How about you, Aliyah? Aliyah, yes? Parang yung connection ni Aliyah medyo mahina. How about J3?
Insects.
Yes. Insects. And Niel, what else?
Wind.
Yes, wind is, yes, mentioned already. Very good. And we have, for insects, we have the butterflies, we have bees, we have, you know, or other insects not mentioned in the discussion. Okay, did you get it? Now let's define now the process of transferring the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Again, what do you call the process of transferring the pollen grains from anther to the stigma? Anyone? What do you call that process? O yun yung sinasabi kanina. What is that process? Yes, Abam? Yes, Abam? Or Hannah? Go, Hannah. JM? JM, are you there? Percy, what do you call that process of transferring, or the transfer rather, of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma? Yes, Santara?
Cross-pollination.
I don't include first cross. Just pollination. Okay? So from the word pollen, pollination. Okay? Pollen grains. Pollination. So ano yung nililipat? Pollen grains from anther to the stigma. Again, take note of that part. From anther, that is male, to the stigma, that is female. Get it? Okay, that is pollination. Now, we have two types of pollination mentioned there. The self and the cross. Yung mini-mention ni Santara na cross. When we say self, so for example, let's say this is a flower, o gamitin ko na lang, example tong panyo ko or yung handkerchief. This is the flower. Take note, one flower has stamen and pistil. So the pollen grains from the anther of that flower will be transferred to the stigma of the same flower. You get it? And that is self-pollination. But there are instances that the bees or the insects will sip nectar from the flower. Definitely the pollen grains will be attached to their feet. And when they transfer to another flower, the pollen grains will be transferred to another flower. Do you get my point? Of the same kind, and that is cross-pollination. Again, from the word itself, self meaning the pollination, the transfer of anther, of pollen from anther to the stigma happens in the same flower. But cross-pollination, transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of another flower, but same kind. Kung gumamela, then kaya lang magkaiba siyang flower. Okay? So that's what we mean by the self-pollination and cross-pollination. You can actually read that more on page 133 of your book about the pollination. You get it? So the things that we need to review here are the following. 1, okay, reproductive parts of flower, pistil, and stamen. Okay, that is why your task number 1 for this class is you're going to draw the reproductive parts of flowers and label it. Okay? And then below the drawing with the label, you're going to write the functions. For example, what are the functions of anther? What is the function rather of anther? What is the function of filament? What is the function of style? So on and so forth. You get it? Okay, that's your task number 1. I'm going to put it doon sa inyong group chat para makasunod kung anong gagawin. Next, for task number 2, okay, you are going to differentiate self and cross-pollination. Okay, differentiate, again, self and cross-pollination. Yan. How are you going to differentiate it? So it's up to you paano nyo explain. In explaining the difference between the self and cross-pollination, pwede kayong gumawa ng drawing, pwede rin kayong mag-describe lang using your paper or your notebook. So it's up to you kung paano nyo siya i-differentiate. You got my point? All right. That is your task for this subject. Again, task 1, draw and then label the structure and then put the functions. Number 2, you're going to differentiate the self-pollination and the cross-pollination. Did you get it? Wait for that and I'm going to post it sa ating GC. Now, please review more dun sa ating binigay ko sa inyong, what you call this, binigay ko sa inyong exam, same kung ano yung content kasi magbibigay ulit ako ng exam, same thing, na ganun pa rin exam na binigay ko lang ngayon. Okay? So, any questions?
Sir, kailan po yung deadline?
Later, class, hanggang 4 p.m. Okay? So, I'll wait for that. So, that's it for the reproductive parts of flowers. Next time, we're going to discuss asexual and sexual reproduction in plants. Doon nyo na malalaman kung paano sila nag-reproduce asexually and sexually. Okay? So, that's it. Questions? None so far? Okay, if that's the case, see you next time and please wait for the task na ilalagay ko sa inyong GC. Okay? So that's it. See you.
Bye, sir. Thank you po.
Bye po, sir. Thank you po.
Bye-bye po.
Bye, sir.
You po.
Thank you po.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Take care.